This is the third video of making the McCall's number M5112 Capri pants. And you can see I have my pattern pieces cut out. The one with the wax paper still on top of it is piece 17, and this is piece 16. And the first instructions are to sew the inner seam of each, the front and the back, together. So this is the front, and this is the inner seam going down here. So I will go ahead and stitch that one, and then set that aside, and then stitch the inner seam on number 17, which is right down here. Now this machine does not have a cloth guide or a seam guide, so I have to use a magnet. I have white bobbin thread in there right now, because I want to let that run out before I wind another bobbin. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch down the seam of, this is the front, and this is the inner seam. And this is a treadle, so it might be a little bit noisy. And I have to get it going. The hand wheel works differently than my other machine, so now you can see it doesn't really want to go over that pin. So let me pull the pin out. And I was just stitching with this a moment ago, but I think what happened, either my bobbin did run out, or the bobbin thread is not being picked up. So let's just check that. And there is still thread on the bobbin, but it's almost run out. So let me go ahead and wind a bobbin. Okay, here we go. I did wind a bobbin. Took me a few minutes, but I did get it wound, and I think that I'll only probably need one bobbin for this project. I did find that also with the dress that I made the other day, that really one well-wound bobbin was all I needed. So here we go with stitching the inner seam on the front. I don't want to go backwards like that, so just give me a minute. And I'm not running over the pins with this one, although I guess I could if I needed to. But you can see that the biggest problem, if there is one, is just making sure you don't go backwards with a treadle. And now what I'll do is stitch the inner seam on the back pieces and then press these seams open. Now I just made an error, and I thought about starting this video over again, but I'm actually going to leave the error in. The mass shooting in Orlando happened a little while ago, and I think I got upset, and even though I shut the news off, I wasn't paying attention. And sometimes these things happen, so I'm going to leave this in here and hope none of you have started to sew anything yet. I had said that I was going to stitch the front to the front piece and the back to the back piece. And that was my error, and I just ripped out that seam that I had stitched. I need to stitch one front piece to one back piece twice at the inner leg edges. So I will line up one back piece along this seam with one front piece along that seam and stitch that, and then do the same with the other two pieces. And I do apologize for that. And this is what they look like when you get the front and back stitched to each other. On the left hand side over here there is a back and then a front, and over here on this side there is a front where my finger is pointing and a back. So actually what you're looking at is the two legs of the front are in the center, and then the backs would wrap around. But that's, and I do apologize for that. I really got thrown by that shooting, and I read the directions and even said you sew the front to the front and the back to the back, and it was wrong. It's one front piece to the back piece and one front piece to the back piece. And that's where I am now. Now I have to press them and press the seams open. I now have the center seam ready to be stitched, and this is step 2. I have the two pieces that I had sewn together are right sides together. These two pieces over here are the two front pieces, right sides together, and those two are the two back pieces, and this is the center seam, and I'm going to sew right down the center seam like this. And this is where it helps to line up your notches, line up your seam allowance here, and then I'm going to come back and reinforce between the dot area, which is about here. So that's step 2, is to stitch the center seam and then reinforce the area of the curve near the inner seam, right down here. Okay, I have done that center seam, as you can see, and this is exactly the way it was a moment ago, only now it's stitched where the back is on the left and the front is on the right. I think that's the way I had it. And now step 3 is to stitch the front and the back together at the side seams. So when you open this up, you have two backs over there and two fronts over here, and you need to stitch the front to the back at the side seams. So you had it this way to do the center seam. You had it laying like that this way to do the center seam. What you are going to do now is put this over to the right, so you're opening the whole thing up like that, and there's your center seam that you just stitched. And then take this and go like that, and you will have a front to a back. In other words, now your center seam is going front to back this way, and you will have a front piece to a back piece. This might be an easier way to visualize it. This is the two front pieces that you're seeing, and the two back pieces are behind them. And the seams that we have to sew are over here. and on the other side as well, except these are now wrong sides together the way the pants will be worn. So what you have to do is have this exactly inside out from the way it is. So what you can do, there are a couple of ways to do it, and I'm sure you won't be as confused as I am, but you can just pull the front down. So the front looks like that, it's halfway down, and then one at a time pull the leg up this way so that you have the front to the back on the sides. So what we're doing are the side seams, like that. So now that half is right sides together, and you can stitch it. And if you do the same thing on this side, just move that front piece off to the side for a moment and pull the middle of the leg up that way until you have those two same edges lined up for right sides together, like that. So don't worry about what the center looks like right now. Just what you need to do is have the side seams, the outside side seams, right sides together with one front piece to one back piece. And I hope I'm not confusing you more. All they say in the directions is sew the front to the back at the side seams. But you will, once you make more than one pair of pants, you know that you sew the center seam, which we just did, one way, then you turn everything the other way and sew the side seams. So the way I just showed you, where you just pull down the front piece and then turn the legs inside out, will get you the side seams right sides together to sew. And I'll just show you here, because that front piece will actually get pulled that way as you line up these side seams. You see what I mean? It's an easy way to turn them inside out. And after the side seams, the only two things that are left are the elastic casing for the waist and the elastic and the hemming. So really, even with my mistake of telling you the wrong way to sew the two pieces together at the beginning, a very quick way to make a pair of pants. But what I'll be doing now is sewing the side seams like that on the Model A. I want to have just a little bit more of the actual machine in here because this machine has not given me a problem at all. And what I was saying in the first part of the first video about how all you need is a simple machine is so true. This machine is from 1872, and I'm making wild fabric capri pants with it, and it's fun. The bobbin winding went fine. I haven't had an issue. It's taking the fabric well, and this is a linen, it might be linen, but it's a slippery fine fabric, and there's no problem at all with the machine. So other than my big mistake on how to sew the pieces together at the beginning of this video, this really is a fast project. Now you can see that right now, as with most machines, if you don't start the fabric back far enough, everything tends to bunch up. So let's start there. And I did end up running over a couple of pins with this. Alright, so I've got the needle thread all wrapped around. Now we know that that is happening because I just said I haven't had a problem. But that happens with all my machines, is true. But every once in a while the needle thread wraps all around. And that will especially happen if you go backwards on any treadle. That your needle thread will get wrapped around like that. Now I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and sew the side seams and end this video here, and then on the last video for this I'll talk about the elastic casing at the waist and the hemming and how great they look.